Hi, I'm Avery Arden. I'm an autistic minister, seminary graduate, and a few years ago I wrote a poem about what it's like to be autistic while worshiping God. It's focused around the idea of stimming, which is defined most generally as the sort of movements of rocking and tapping and humming and all of that autistic people and other neurodivergent people do in order to sort of regulate our own sensory input and output. So if we are getting overwhelmed by our surroundings, by bright lights or sounds or crowds or just high emotions, we rock or we'll tap, we'll hum, do any of those sort of movements in order to keep ourselves from getting over or understimulated. And yeah, that's called stimming. And when I was reading 2 Samuel chapter 6, which is the story of David bringing the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, and he has stripped down to being almost naked, and he is dancing with abandon before the Ark. I saw something of my own autistic experience in that story. And basically, after the event, his wife Michal comes to him and is like, "You should be ashamed of yourself for dancing almost naked in front of God and everybody, including the slaves of the slaves, right? The lowest of the low. How could you do this to me? It's embarrassing to me, David, to be married to someone doing that." And David's response is basically to say, "Hey, it was my way of worshiping God. I was doing it for God. So who cares who saw? And anyway, I will continue to lower myself in my own eyes if that's what it takes to worship God," is sort of David's response. And as an autistic person who has been made to feel ashamed of the natural ways my body moves, that really resonated with me. This idea that when I worship God, I can bring my whole self into that worship, including stimming, and that I can use my stimming to worship God. And I also think of that idea of who might see me, that yes, that can mean I face judgment and criticism, but it also means that if somebody like me, someone else who's autistic and who has been made to feel ashamed of how they move, if they see me stimming, maybe that can empower them to stim too, to bring their whole selves into worship as well. And that makes it worthwhile. So I'm going to read the poem that I wrote a few years ago and that I've revised over the years. David, you did not let their mockery or judgment shame you into freezing up your limbs when your whole body, overcome with awe and bursting at the seams with joy in God, could not bear to keep still. He danced before the ark with all his might, worship embodied to God's delight. David, I too know the sting of loved ones grabbing at your hands, demanding that you quiet them. The pain of their shame at the way your body moves. And I too know the courage that it takes to move anyway. I will stim. As this body my God made for me desires, I will strum my hand in time to the guitar's praise song. I will flap my hands like the trees of the field when the preacher's words ignite my heart. I will hum when things become too loud and bright for me, if humming is the life preserver that can carry me back into God's open arms. And if they treat me like a child for the way I walk or talk, or because I use STEM tools that look like toys to them, well, God gives wisdom to the little ones to make the wise into fools. So go ahead, call me child. I will flap and tap and rock God's wisdom into the pews where you stand so still and decorous. David, you are not alone before the ark. I stand with you. Together we throw back our heads and laugh at their shocked faces. as the Spirit spins around, beside, beneath, within our stomping feet, our dancing hands. Amen. Amen. Amen.